In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Welcome to Journey to Jannah, where timeless wisdom meets the present day. Here we bring you audiobook-style biographies of the greatest minds in Islamic history, scholars, thinkers, and reformers who shaped the course of knowledge, faith, and civilization. From Imam Abu Hanifa to Ibn Sina, from al-Ghazali to Sayyid Qutb, each story is a journey through trials, triumphs, and unwavering dedication to the pursuit of truth. Sit back, reflect, and let your heart travel through centuries of Islamic heritage. One voice, one story, one lesson at a time. Subscribe now and begin your journey toward knowledge, inspiration, and Jannah, inshallah. Journey to Jannah, where knowledge lives. The voice of moderation, the life of Yusuf al-Qaradawi.
In the heart of the 20th century, amid the tremors of political upheaval and the reshaping of the Muslim world, a voice rose that would echo through mosques, universities, and living rooms alike. Yusuf al-Qaradawi, scholar, jurist, and sometimes controversial figure, became a beacon for millions seeking guidance in turbulent times. This is the story of a man who balanced tradition and modernity, faith and politics, scholarship and public discourse, weaving a complex legacy still debated today. Through this biography, you will walk the dusty streets of his birthplace in Egypt, hear the fervor of his lectures in Doha, and glimpse the human beneath the scholar, the son, the teacher, the thinker, and the man caught between worlds.
Early life and roots.
The sun rose gently over the Nile Delta, casting a golden glow on the small village of Saft Turab, where Yusuf al-Qaradawi took his first breath on September 9, 1926. The village, surrounded by fields of sugarcane and date palms, was a world apart from the bustling streets of Cairo or Alexandria, yet it was a place deeply rooted in the rhythms of Islamic tradition and rural Egyptian life. Yusuf's childhood home was modest, a low whitewashed building, with a courtyard where the family gathered at sunset to break their fast during Ramadan. His father, a pious man known for his integrity and deep commitment to Islam, was respected by neighbors not only for his religious devotion, but also for his gentle demeanor and quiet wisdom. His mother, tender and nurturing, ensured that the household was filled with warmth, even as life was often marked by hardship. From the earliest days, Yusuf was immersed in the sounds and sights of his village. Children's laughter mingled with the bleating of goats, the call to prayer echoing from the nearby mosque, and the distant hum of the Nile's waters. It was a world where tradition ruled, and the Quran's verses were not just words, but a living presence, shaping every aspect of daily life. Yusuf's education began at the village Kutab, a small Quranic school where boys gathered under the watchful eye of an imam. The school was humble, with wooden benches and fading manuscripts, but for Yusuf, it was a gateway to a vast, timeless universe. He memorized the Quran with an ease that surprised his teachers, his youthful voice rising in perfect recitation as the words took root in his heart. His parents watched with pride and hope, knowing that education was a path to a better future. Yet the world beyond Saft Turab was in flux. Egypt, under British control, was stirring with nationalist fervor. Newspapers and radios carried news of protests, political leaders, and the struggles for independence. Young Yusuf heard these distant voices, but found his own anchor in the sacred texts and the traditions passed down through generations. By the time he was a young teenager, Yusuf's curiosity extended beyond the Quran. He devoured classical Arabic literature, studied the principles of fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence, and pondered the lives of great scholars who had shaped Islamic thought through the ages. He was fascinated by the delicate balance between faith and reason, law and compassion, spirituality, and social justice. At night, in the flickering candlelight of their home, Yusuf would listen intently to his father's stories of scholars like Imam Malik and al-Ghazali, whose wisdom transcended centuries. These tales stirred something within him, a yearning, not just to follow, but to contribute, to engage with Islam as a living, breathing tradition relevant to the challenges of his time. Yet Yusuf was also a child of his age, aware of the tensions that marked Egypt's struggle between colonial powers and emerging modernity. He witnessed debates between tradition and reform, conservatism and progressivism, religion and nationalism. These currents shaped his thinking, planting the seeds of a lifelong quest to reconcile Islamic values with the changing world. His schooling soon expanded beyond the village, and he made his way to the city of Tanta. There, he enrolled in a more formal institution. The city was a bustling center of commerce and culture, and for Yusuf, it was a revelation, a world where ideas collided and debates flourished. Here, he encountered teachers who challenged him to think critically, to explore the deeper meanings behind texts, and to apply Islamic principles thoughtfully to contemporary issues. In Tanta, Yusuf also began to experience the complexities of religious and political life firsthand. He saw how religious leaders could inspire hope or stir conflict, how faith could unite or divide. These lessons would prove invaluable as he matured into a scholar destined to navigate the turbulent waters of modern Islamic thought. Throughout these years, Yusuf remained deeply connected to his roots, the simple village life, the morning prayers by the Nile, the stories and values that shaped his earliest worldview. But he was no longer just a boy in Saft Turab. He was becoming a thinker, a seeker, a man who would one day shape the conversation about Islam for millions across the world.
The formative years, education and awakening.
As Yusuf al-Qaradawi stepped beyond the familiar boundaries of Saft Turab, the world around him seemed vast and complex, a world that demanded more than memorization and recitation. It was a world where knowledge was power and faith was a living conversation with the challenges of modernity. In the bustling city of Tanta, where narrow streets hummed with merchants calling their wares and scholars debated in quiet corners of mosques, Yusuf embarked on a new chapter of his life. The school was more rigorous here, and the scholars more demanding. His teachers recognized a rare intellect in the young man, the quiet boy from the Nile Delta who absorbed knowledge with a hunger that seemed insatiable. He was introduced to the classical Islamic sciences, tafsir, Quranic exegesis, hadith, sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, usul al-fiqh, principles of Islamic jurisprudence, and kalam, Islamic theology. But alongside these, the currents of political and social reform were gathering force, not just in Egypt, but across the Muslim world. In the 1940s, Egypt was a nation on the brink of transformation. The stirrings of anti-colonial nationalism blended uneasily with calls for religious revival and social justice. Young Yusuf found himself drawn to the ideas of the Muslim Brotherhood, founded just a decade earlier by Hassan al-Banna. The Brotherhood's call for an Islamic society based on justice, education, and moral renewal resonated deeply with his own beliefs. Yet Yusuf was not content to follow blindly. His thirst for knowledge took him to Cairo, the beating heart of Egypt's intellectual life. There, he enrolled in Al-Azhar University, the centuries-old institution regarded as the foremost center of Sunni Islamic scholarship in the world. Walking the grand halls of Al-Azhar, Yusuf felt the weight of history. He was surrounded by books that had shaped generations of Muslim thinkers, professors whose debates stretched late into the night, and students from across the Muslim world seeking answers to the same questions that troubled him. His studies were intense. Days and nights blended into long sessions of reading, discussion, and reflection. He delved deeply into the Quran, the Hadith, and the rich traditions of Islamic jurisprudence. But unlike many of his peers, Yusuf also paid close attention to the modern world, Western philosophy, political theories, the scientific advances that were reshaping societies. This dual awareness became a defining feature of his thought. He sought not just to preserve Islamic tradition, but to engage it dynamically, to interpret it in ways that could meet the needs of contemporary Muslims living under colonial rule, in post-colonial states, and scattered across the globe. At Al-Azhar, Yusuf's talents did not go unnoticed. He began teaching younger students while still studying, his voice calm but authoritative as he explained complex legal and theological concepts. His reputation grew, and with it, the sense of responsibility that weighed on his shoulders. But his journey was not without its struggles. The political atmosphere in Egypt was tense. The struggle against British rule was intensifying, and religious movements were often caught in the crossfire between nationalist forces and colonial powers. Yusuf, like many others, found himself navigating treacherous waters, balancing his faith and scholarly pursuits with the realities of political activism. Amidst the turmoil, he married his beloved wife, whose steadfast support would become a pillar in his life. Together, they dreamed of a future where Islamic principles could guide societies toward justice and peace. Yusuf's years at Al-Azhar were transformative, not only in knowledge, but in character. He was shaping into a scholar who could bridge worlds, the sacred and the secular, tradition and modernity, East and West. It was this synthesis that would later make him a voice heard far beyond the lecture halls of Cairo. As graduation approached, Yusuf faced a critical choice: to remain within the familiar confines of Egypt or to embrace a wider stage where his ideas might take root and flourish. The seeds planted in those formative years would soon sprout in ways even he could not yet foresee.
A scholar's path, teaching and exile.
After graduating from Al-Azhar University with honors, Yusuf al-Qaradawi stood at a crossroads. The doors of opportunity stretched wide, but the road ahead was anything but straightforward. Egypt's political landscape was shifting rapidly. Revolution was in the air, and intellectuals like Yusuf found themselves swept into a tide of change that would test their beliefs, resolve, and very identity. In the years following World War II, the Egyptian nationalist movement surged with the 1952 Free Officers' Coup, overthrowing the monarchy and promising a new dawn for the nation. Yusuf, like many of his generation, hoped for reforms that would align with justice and dignity. Yet the new regime's relationship with religious institutions was complicated and often fraught. Yusuf's affiliation with the Muslim Brotherhood and his outspoken support for Islamic revival increasingly put him at odds with the government. The lines between scholar, preacher, and political dissident blurred in ways he had not initially intended. Despite the tension, Yusuf began to make a name for himself as a dedicated teacher and scholar. He took up a position at the Faculty of Theology at Cairo University, where he lectured on Islamic law, ethics, and contemporary issues facing the Muslim world. His students admired his clarity, his ability to relate classical texts to present-day challenges, and his deep compassion for those seeking guidance. Yet, as the years passed, Yusuf's prominence attracted scrutiny. The government's suspicion of the Brotherhood intensified, culminating in crackdowns that sent waves of fear through religious and political circles. Many of Yusuf's colleagues and friends were arrested or forced underground. It was clear that to continue his work freely, he might have to leave the country he loved. In 1961, after years of increasing pressure, Yusuf made the difficult decision to leave Egypt. He accepted an invitation to teach in Qatar, a small, quiet Gulf emirate just beginning to emerge on the world stage. It was a moment of exile, but also a fresh beginning. Qatar at that time was a place of contrasts, deeply traditional, yet poised on the edge of modernization, fueled by oil wealth. Yusuf found a new home in Doha, where he joined Qatar University's Faculty of Sharia. Here, he could teach with fewer restrictions, reaching a new generation of students eager for knowledge and inspiration. His influence grew beyond the classroom. Through radio broadcasts, public lectures, and writings, Yusuf began to shape religious discourse across the Gulf and wider Arab world. His message was clear. Islam was not a relic of the past, but a living tradition that could guide society through the complexities of modern life. Yet exile was not without its hardships. Yusuf missed Egypt, the streets where he grew up, the bustling life of Cairo, the intellectual debates that had shaped his youth. He was a man torn between worlds, longing for home, but committed to his mission. In the years that followed, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's stature expanded further. He became a founding figure in international Islamic organizations, advisor to governments, and a respected voice on questions of fiqh and ethics. His views on issues ranging from finance to politics to social justice attracted both admirers and critics. But no matter how far his influence spread, Yusuf's roots remained firmly planted in the faith and values of his childhood in Saf Turab. His scholarship was a bridge between tradition and innovation, East and West, the past and the future. As the world around him continued to shift, with wars, revolutions, and the rise of new powers, Yusuf al-Qaradawi stood as a witness and participant, shaping the conversation on Islam's role in the modern age.
The voice of a generation, media and influence.
In the quiet classrooms of Doha, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's reputation as a scholar was growing steadily. But it was through the airwaves that his voice would become a beacon for millions. The advent of satellite television and international radio transformed the way ideas moved across borders, and Yusuf was quick to harness these new tools. In the 1990s, as the Arab world experienced a surge in satellite channels, Yusuf became a familiar face and voice on programs that reached from Morocco to Indonesia. His calm demeanor and measured explanations made complex Islamic jurisprudence accessible to ordinary people seeking answers in a rapidly changing world. One of his most famous platforms was Al Jazeera, the Qatar-based satellite channel that launched in 1996. Yusuf's weekly program, Sharia and Life, became a cornerstone of the network's religious programming. Millions tuned in to hear his perspectives on contemporary issues, family matters, politics, finance, social ethics, and the role of Islam in governance. Yusuf's style was unique. He balanced scholarly rigor with a deep empathy for his audience's struggles. He spoke not as a distant authority, but as a guide, addressing questions with a blend of traditional knowledge and modern sensibility. His fatwas, legal opinions, on sensitive topics often stirred debate, but also brought clarity to many. Yet with influence came controversy. Yusuf's support for political Islam, particularly his backing of the Muslim Brotherhood and his views on conflicts in the Middle East, attracted sharp criticism from governments and rival thinkers. Some accused him of fostering division. Others hailed him as a voice of hope and resistance. Despite the controversies, Yusuf remained steadfast in his belief that Islam could provide ethical solutions to political and social problems. He wrote extensively, books, articles, and fatwas on issues ranging from Islamic finance to bioethics, from democracy to jihad, always striving to articulate a vision of Islam that was both faithful and relevant. His impact was felt not only in the Arab world, but across the global Muslim diaspora. From universities in Europe to mosques in North America, Yusuf's lectures and writings shaped discussions on identity, faith, and integration. Behind the scenes, Yusuf was also a mentor to a new generation of scholars and activists, encouraging dialogue and intellectual openness. He believed that Islam's strength lay in its ability to adapt while remaining rooted in core principles. As the new millennium unfolded, Yusuf al-Qaradawi became more than a scholar. He became a symbol of a generation's search for meaning in a world of change, both loved and contested, revered and challenged.
The Arab Spring and a scholar in the eye of the storm.
The dawn of 2011 brought winds of change sweeping through the Arab world, a wave of popular uprisings known as the Arab Spring. In Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria, and beyond, millions demanded dignity, freedom, and justice. Yusuf al-Qaradawi, a respected elder scholar, was thrust into this upheaval. His influential voice now carried great expectation and controversy. As protests erupted in Cairo's Tahrir Square, a place he left decades earlier, Yusuf spoke passionately for the people's right to demand change. Through sermons and fatwas, he encouraged peaceful resistance and warned against violence that could fracture society. Yet his support wasn't unconditional. Yusuf believed Islam was a moral and political framework and called for reforms reflecting Islamic principles of justice, equality, and consultation, shura. He advocated for the Muslim Brotherhood's political participation, seeing it as a legitimate popular expression. This stance elevated his stature among supporters, but made him a target for critics accusing him of partisanship. Governments wary of Islamist movements condemned his views, while secular activists questioned religion's role in governance. Egypt's political landscape shifted dramatically. The Brotherhood rose with Mohamed Morsi's 2012 election, fulfilling Yusuf's long-held hopes for Islamic renewal. But Morsi's presidency ended in a 2013 military coup, plunging Egypt into conflict and repression. Yusuf, settled in Qatar, watched with a heavy heart as hopes for democracy faded and violence escalated. Throughout this time, Yusuf urged peaceful dialogue and reconciliation, calling for restraint and unity. His sermons addressed the region's pain and division, urging Muslims to remember shared humanity beyond politics. The Arab Spring tested Yusuf's vision and influence like never before, revealing the challenges of applying Islamic principles in a fractured political landscape. Yet, it underscored his commitment to a faith seeking justice through knowledge, compassion, and engagement with the world. As dust settled, Yusuf's legacy was both celebrated and contested. To many, he was a guiding light, a scholar who spoke truth to power and gave voice to millions seeking hope. To others, he was a controversial figure, symbolizing deep ideological struggles in the Muslim world. Yet through it all, Yusuf remained rooted in the simple truths of his youth in Saf Turab, that faith must be lived humbly, knowledge pursued relentlessly, and justice be the foundation of every society.
Legacy and controversy. The scholar's later years.
As the years rolled on, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's stature as one of the most influential Islamic scholars remained undiminished. Yet, his path was never without challenge. His later years were marked by both reverence and controversy, two sides of the same coin for a public intellectual who spoke boldly on faith and politics. Settled in Doha, Qatar, Yusuf continued to write, teach, and broadcast. His presence on Al Jazeera and other media kept him in millions of homes, where his sermons and fatwas offered guidance on family life and global conflicts. In a world growing increasingly polarized, his views drew fierce debate. Some governments labeled him a troublemaker or extremist, especially for supporting Islamist political movements and his outspoken stances on regional conflicts. Travel restrictions and bans at times reflected political tensions surrounding his name. Despite this, Yusuf remained undeterred. He saw himself as a bridge builder, articulating Islam's core values while addressing modernity's complexities and geopolitics. His prolific writings covered Islamic finance, bioethics, interfaith dialogue, democracy, and human rights within an Islamic framework. He mentored a new generation of scholars and activists, encouraging intellectual openness and dialogue even as the region grew more fractious. His commitment to education was unwavering, believing true reform must come from knowledge and understanding, rather than force. Yusuf's personal life was quieter, shielded from public view, but grounded in faith and family. His wife remained a steadfast partner, and his children carried forward his legacy, blending tradition with the modern world. As the 21st century unfolded, Yusuf's life became a testament to the enduring struggle to harmonize faith, reason, and social justice. His journey, from a humble village in Egypt to the global stage, reflected the hopes, contradictions, and complexities of the Muslim world itself. His impact was undeniable. Whether one agreed or disagreed with his views, Yusuf changed the conversation. He challenged Muslims to think critically, act ethically, and engage constructively with the world around them. In that challenge lay his greatest legacy, a call to faith that was never static, never dogmatic, but always alive, shaped by knowledge, compassion, and an unyielding quest for justice.
The enduring influence of Yusuf al-Qaradawi.
As the sun set on a long and eventful life, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's story was far from over. Though time would eventually quiet his voice, the ripples of his teachings, writings, and public presence continued to shape Islamic thought and practice worldwide. His journey had been one of deep faith and profound intellectual inquiry, a path marked by perseverance through exile, political upheaval, and controversy. Yet through it all, Yusuf remained committed to a vision of Islam that embraced both tradition and change, encouraging believers to navigate the modern world with wisdom and courage. Across continents and cultures, his influence lingered in the mosques of small towns and the halls of great universities, in the debates of scholars and the prayers of everyday people. His numerous fatwas became reference points for millions wrestling with new challenges, from bioethical dilemmas to questions of governance and social justice. Though opinions about him varied widely, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's legacy was undeniable. He was a scholar who dared to engage the pressing issues of his time, unafraid to voice convictions that sparked both admiration and dissent. He embodied the tensions of a faith striving to remain true to its roots while responding to a rapidly changing world. In the end, Yusuf's life was a testament to the power of knowledge, dialogue, and faith intertwined. His story inspired countless others to seek understanding and pursue justice in their own lives and communities. As future generations study his works and listen to his sermons, they will encounter a man who lived at the crossroads of history and belief, a scholar whose voice echoed the hopes and struggles of millions. And though Yusuf al-Qaradawi's earthly journey came to a close, the dialogue he helped shape continues, carried forward by those who, like him, believe that Islam's greatest strength lies in its ability to enlighten minds and soften hearts, guiding humanity toward a better tomorrow.
Yusuf al-Qaradawi and his impact on global Islamic movements.
In the complex tapestry of modern Islamic movements, few figures loom as large as Yusuf al-Qaradawi. His influence stretched far beyond the lecture halls and television studios where his voice first gained prominence, shaping the political and spiritual currents that flowed through Muslim communities around the globe. From the bustling streets of Cairo to the mosques of London, from the universities of Malaysia to the refugee camps of Palestine, Yusuf's ideas resonated deeply. He became a symbolic figure for those seeking an Islam that was both rooted in tradition and engaged with the challenges of contemporary life. Central to Yusuf's impact was his support for the idea of political Islam, a vision where Islam provided not just spiritual guidance, but also a framework for governance, justice, and social reform. He viewed movements like the Muslim Brotherhood as vital forces for change, embodying the hopes of millions who longed for dignity and ethical leadership. Through his writings and fatwas, Yusuf articulated a theology that justified peaceful political participation while cautioning against extremism and violence. His nuanced stance allowed him to influence a wide spectrum of Islamic movements, from moderate reformists to more conservative groups, giving them a shared language to express their aspirations. His presence in media amplified this impact. His weekly programs reached millions, serving as a platform for dialogue and education. Young activists saw in him a mentor and guide, someone who connected classical Islamic scholarship with the realities of modern political struggle. Yet his involvement in global Islamic movements was not without controversy. Governments wary of Islamist influence often criticized him, viewing his ideas as threats to secular authority or regional stability. Some accused him of encouraging divisiveness or justifying militancy, charges he consistently denied, emphasizing dialogue and peaceful activism. Despite these challenges, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's legacy within global Islamic movements endures. He helped shape a discourse that bridged generations and geographies, a discourse balancing faithfulness to Islamic principles with engagement in the public sphere. His influence is evident in the ongoing debates about Islam and democracy, the role of Sharia in state law, and the rights and responsibilities of Muslims in diverse societies. Through his life and work, Yusuf al-Qaradawi left an indelible mark on the evolving story of Islam in the modern world, a story still being written today.
Personal stories, voices inspired by Yusuf al-Qaradawi.
Across continents and cultures, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's words became a lifeline for many. Ordinary believers, students, activists, each finding in his teachings a source of guidance, hope, and strength. Their stories reveal the profound personal impact of a scholar whose reach extended far beyond the pulpit and printed page. In a small mosque tucked away in a London suburb, Amina, a young university student, found in Yusuf's lectures the clarity she desperately sought. Raised in a secular household, Amina struggled to reconcile her faith with the pressures of modern life. It was Yusuf's gentle insistence on balancing tradition with reason that helped her navigate this complex path. His words made me feel that Islam is not just about rituals, she recalled, but a way of life that embraces knowledge and compassion. Thousands of miles away, in a refugee camp in Jordan, Yusuf's sermons were a source of comfort to families torn apart by conflict. For Hassan, a schoolteacher displaced from Syria, the scholar's calls for peace and justice echoed amid the chaos. "He gave us hope when everything seemed lost," Hassan said, clutching a worn copy of one of Yusuf's books. In Cairo, Fatima, a mother and community organizer, drew inspiration from Yusuf's emphasis on social justice and the empowerment of women within Islamic frameworks. She credited his teachings with giving her the confidence to lead educational programs for girls in her neighborhood. "I saw in him a model of faith that encouraged action and dialogue," Fatima explained. "He taught us to be both devout and engaged." At the same time, Yusuf mentored emerging scholars and activists, encouraging them to think critically and embrace diversity within Islam. Many who attended his lectures or studied under him spoke of a man deeply committed to nurturing the next generation, patient, approachable, and intellectually rigorous. Yet not all encounters were easy. Some struggled with his political stances or found his views on certain issues challenging. These conversations, too, became part of his legacy, a testament to a thinker who invited debate and reflection rather than blind obedience. Through these personal stories, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's influence emerges not merely as abstract theology, but as living, breathing connections, threads weaving together the hopes, struggles, and dreams of Muslims around the world.
The Pen in the Pulpit, exploring Yusuf al-Qaradawi's major writings and fatwas.
In the world of Islamic scholarship, Yusuf al-Qaradawi was not only a gifted orator, but also a prolific writer. His pens flowed tirelessly, producing works that spanned jurisprudence, ethics, politics, and spirituality. Through these writings, his ideas reached far beyond lecture halls and television screens, into the hands of millions seeking answers in a rapidly changing world. One of his most influential contributions was his encyclopedic work on fiqh al-zakat, the jurisprudence of almsgiving. In this book, Yusuf meticulously detailed the obligations and spiritual significance of zakat, emphasizing its role not just as charity, but as a mechanism for social justice and economic equity. This work became a cornerstone for scholars and activists working to implement Islamic finance principles worldwide. Beyond jurisprudence, Yusuf's books often tackled contemporary issues with clarity and compassion. In The Lawful and the Prohibited in Islam, he addressed questions of daily life, from diet and dress to ethics and interpersonal relations, guiding Muslims through the complexities of modernity without sacrificing tradition. His dialogue with an atheist showcased his ability to engage skeptics and critics respectfully, defending faith with reasoned argumentation rather than polemics. Here, Yusuf revealed his commitment to intellectual openness and his belief that faith and reason could coexist harmoniously. Yusuf's fatwas, legal opinions issued in response to specific questions, became one of his most impactful legacies. Delivered through the platform of Islam Online, a pioneering website he helped establish, these fatwas answered queries from believers worldwide on issues ranging from bioethics and finance to political participation and family law. Among his most widely discussed fatwas was his stance during the Arab Spring, where he supported peaceful protests and the right to demand political reform. This stance exemplified his willingness to address complex political realities while grounding his opinions in Islamic jurisprudence. His approach was characterized by flexibility and context awareness, often emphasizing maslahah, public interest, and ijtihad, independent reasoning, over rigid literalism. This allowed him to offer guidance attuned to contemporary challenges without abandoning core Islamic principles. Yet, Yusuf's writings were not without controversy. Critics accused some of his fatwas of being politically motivated or insufficiently critical of certain regimes and movements. Yusuf responded by underscoring the scholarly rigor behind his opinions and the importance of balancing faith with pragmatism. Throughout his literary legacy, one theme shone clearly: a deep belief in Islam as a dynamic, living tradition capable of guiding humanity toward justice, compassion, and wisdom. His books and fatwas invited Muslims to engage thoughtfully with their faith and the world, embracing both spiritual depth and worldly responsibility. In this vast body of work, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's voice remains alive, a beacon for seekers navigating the turbulent crossroads of faith and modernity.
Shadows and spotlight, controversies and criticisms.
No life lived loudly escapes shadows, and for Yusuf al-Qaradawi, the spotlight often came with its share of scrutiny. His bold stances, extensive influence, and political involvement inevitably stirred controversy, polarizing opinions that followed him across nations and decades. Throughout his career, Yusuf was accused by some governments and critics of supporting extremism or political unrest. His outspoken backing of the Muslim Brotherhood, a movement seen by many as a legitimate expression of Islamic political activism, but by others as a threat to secular order, placed him in the crosshairs of authorities wary of Islamist influence. Certain fatwas and statements sparked heated debate. Critics pointed to some of his remarks on political violence, gender roles, and interfaith relations as evidence of a conservative or hardline worldview. These accusations sometimes overshadowed the nuance in his scholarly approach, which sought to balance Islamic tradition with contemporary realities. In 2012, several countries, including the United States, banned him from entering due to concerns over alleged ties to extremist groups, charges he vehemently denied. Such bans ignited debates about freedom of speech, religious authority, and the complex interplay between politics and religion in the post-9/11 world. Yet, Yusuf's defenders argued that his views were frequently misunderstood or taken out of context. They highlighted his consistent condemnation of terrorism and his calls for peaceful political participation. His supporters viewed him as a bridge between Islam and the modern world, someone willing to engage with difficult questions rather than retreat into dogma. Within the Muslim world, his critics were sometimes fellow scholars who disagreed with his methods or interpretations, reflecting the vibrant and often contentious landscape of Islamic thought. These internal debates underscored how no single voice could capture the diversity of Muslim belief and practice. Through it all, Yusuf maintained his commitment to dialogue. He engaged with critics openly, invited debate, and believed that intellectual struggle was part of the faith journey. This resilience under pressure became a defining feature of his legacy. His life thus serves as a powerful reminder of the challenges faced by religious leaders who step into public arenas, where conviction, politics, and perception collide. Yusuf al-Qaradawi's story is one of courage and complexity, reflecting the tensions of a faith navigating the modern age.
Beyond the scholar, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's personal life and family.
Behind the commanding voice that echoed in lecture halls and across the airwaves was a man whose private life was marked by simplicity, devotion, and the quiet rhythms of family. Yusuf al-Qaradawi's home was a sanctuary from the storm of public attention. Those closest to him remember a man deeply committed to his loved ones, patient, humble, and affectionate. Despite the weight of his responsibilities as a leading Islamic scholar, he made time for his family, cherishing moments spent in conversation and prayer. His marriage was a partnership grounded in mutual respect and shared faith. Together with his wife, Yusuf raised children in an environment that blended Islamic values with encouragement toward education and service. His role as a father was gentle yet firm, guiding his children with the same care he applied to his scholarly pursuits. Family gatherings were often infused with lively discussions, as Yusuf's passion for knowledge extended beyond formal settings. Stories, jokes, and lessons mingled, revealing the human side of a man many only knew through his public persona. Despite his global fame, Yusuf remained rooted in the traditions of his upbringing in Egypt, values of hospitality, community, and piety shaping his daily life. He was known to engage warmly with visitors, regardless of their status, embodying the humility he preached. His personal faith was the wellspring from which all else flowed. Beyond scholarly debates, Yusuf was a man who sought closeness to God through prayer, fasting, and reflection. This spiritual grounding provided strength to navigate the complexities of his public role. Yet, like any family, they faced trials, exile, political pressures, and the burdens of public scrutiny. Through it all, the family's bond offered resilience and comfort, a private refuge amid the tumult. In the quiet moments away from cameras and crowds, Yusuf al-Qaradawi was a husband, a father, a grandfather, a man shaped not only by his intellect, but by love and faith. This side of his story reminds us that behind the towering figure was a human heart beating with the universal hopes and struggles of family life.
A living legacy, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's enduring influence today.
Years after his first steps into scholarship, and even beyond his passing, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's voice continues to resonate across the Muslim world and beyond. His legacy is not confined to the pages of books or archived sermons. It lives, breathes, and evolves in the hearts and minds of millions. Around the globe, new generations turn to his writings and recorded lectures for guidance in navigating the complex intersection of faith and modern life. His vision of an Islam that embraces reason, compassion, and social justice remains a beacon for scholars, activists, and ordinary believers alike. Institutions he helped establish, like Islam Online, continue to provide platforms for dialogue and education, connecting Muslims across cultures and continents. Universities and seminaries include his works in curricula, ensuring that his approach to jurisprudence and ethics informs future Islamic scholarship. His influence also persists in the political arenas, where Muslim communities engage with questions of governance, rights, and identity. Movements advocating for peaceful reform, democracy, and social equity often echo the principles Yusuf articulated decades ago. Even as debates around his positions continue, the very fact that his ideas provoke discussion speaks to their vitality. His writings and fatwas serve as starting points for critical engagement, inspiring both agreement and challenge, essential elements in the ongoing evolution of Islamic thought. Beyond academic and political circles, Yusuf's legacy touches the personal lives of countless individuals. His emphasis on balancing faith with daily challenges encourages Muslims to live authentically in diverse societies, fostering harmony and understanding. In a world marked by rapid change and frequent uncertainty, Yusuf al-Qaradawi's message of hope, resilience, and thoughtful engagement offers a compass, a reminder that faith can illuminate the path forward without dimming the light of reason. As the sun sets on one chapter of history, Yusuf's legacy endures, a living testament to a life devoted to bridging tradition and modernity, inspiring an ever-growing community to seek knowledge, justice, and compassion.
The Journey of a Scholar. Reflecting on Yusuf al-Qaradawi's life and impact.
The story of Yusuf al-Qaradawi is more than a chronicle of a single man's life. It is the narrative of a scholar who dared to navigate the vast ocean of faith and reason, tradition, and change. From a humble village in Egypt to the grand stages of international Islamic discourse, his journey was marked by conviction, courage, and complexity. Through decades of teaching, writing, and public engagement, Yusuf shaped the intellectual and spiritual contours of contemporary Islam. He challenged believers to think deeply, question boldly, and act compassionately. His legacy is a tapestry woven with triumphs and trials, dialogue and debate, devotion and controversy. In reflecting on his life, one sees a man profoundly human, fallible yet steadfast, scholarly yet approachable, rooted in heritage yet open to the future. His story reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge is a lifelong voyage, enriched by humility and the willingness to listen. As readers close the final pages, they are left with an invitation to carry forward the spirit of inquiry, empathy, and faith that defined Yusuf al-Qaradawi's remarkable path. His legacy endures not only in books and institutions, but in the hearts of those inspired to seek truth and justice in their own lives. The scholar's journey may have reached its twilight, but the light he kindled continues to shine, guiding, challenging, and inspiring generations yet to come.
Alhamdulillah for joining us on this journey through the life of one of Islam's great scholars. We hope this story inspired your heart and deepened your connection with the rich legacy of Islamic knowledge. If you found benefit in today's episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Journey to Jannah, your home for Islamic biographies, wisdom, and timeless guidance. New episodes are uploaded regularly, so turn on the notification bell to never miss a moment of insight. May Allah increase us all in beneficial knowledge and guide us on the path of the righteous. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.